The heavy oak door slammed shut behind Benjamin with a finality that sucked the air straight from his lungs. "Get out, and don't come back. This is a family business, not a place for your kind, Mr." Thompson snarled, the words slicing through the warm bakery air like a blade through risen dough. Benjamin stood motionless in the back office of Sweet Haven Bakery, flowers still dusting his apron. The scent of vanilla and butter that had once been home now choking him like smoke. How had it come to this? 5 years of arriving before dawn, firing the ovens with the same quiet reverence his grandmother once showed him, perfecting every loaf and every delicate tart until the little shop in Riverton, Washington, drew customers from 3 towns over. None of it mattered now. Someone had seen him and Lucas at the farmer's market last weekend, fingers brushing too long over a basket of apples, and the rumor had spread faster than yeast in warm water. Benjamin's mind reeled in silent agony. Was I wrong to let myself feel that small moment of joy? Was loving Lucas really the crime that erased everything I built? The questions tore at him, shame rising hot and bitter in his throat while rage simmered underneath, a quiet fire he dared not let show. He had always played the part so carefully, smiling at the church ladies who praised his cinnamon rolls, nodding along to the jokes about real men in the kitchen, yet the mask had cracked, and now the world stared back in disgust. He gathered his things in silence, the cardboard box suddenly heavier than any tray of fresh bread he had ever carried. Each step through the kitchen felt like walking across broken glass. The stainless steel counters gleamed mockingly, the racks of cooling croissants still warm from his hands. This place had been more than a job. It had been the one space where he felt whole, where the rhythm of kneading dough matched the steady beat of his heart when he thought of Lucas waiting at home. Now it was poison. Outside, the cool October wind of the Pacific Northwest whipped across the parking lot, but it did nothing to cool the storm inside him. Benjamin slid into his old truck, gripping the wheel until his knuckles whitened. Why me? Why now? When everything was finally stable, the internal voice would not stop. You knew the rules, Benjamin. You knew this town tolerates quiet differences but punishes open ones. You should have hidden better. You should have denied Lucas that one public touch. The self-reproach was relentless, mingling with flashes of his father's stern face from years ago. A man provides, son, and he doesn't bring shame on the family. Benjamin had tried. God, how he had tried. Yet here he was, 32 years old, suddenly unemployed because his heart had chosen another man. By the time he reached their small apartment on the edge of town, the sun was dipping low, painting the sky in bruised oranges that mirrored the bruise forming in his chest. Lucas opened the door before Benjamin could find his key, his kind face shifting from welcome to worry in a heartbeat. Ben, what happened? You look like the world ended. Benjamin stepped inside, set the box down with a dull thud, and the words finally broke free in a raw whisper. I got fired. Lucas, because I'm gay. Because of us. The room seemed to tilt. Lucas pulled him close without hesitation, arms strong and steady. But Benjamin's mind kept spinning even as he leaned into the embrace. Is this the beginning of the end? Will he see me differently now that I've cost us everything? The doubt clawed deeper, whispering that love should not demand such sacrifice. Yet here it was, demanding anyway. That night, after Lucas had fallen into exhausted sleep, Benjamin lay awake staring at the ceiling cracks he knew by heart. The bakery was not just income, it was identity, legacy, the one place he had poured his unspoken dreams. Losing it felt like losing part of his soul. Yet beneath the grief, something small and sharp stirred resolve. He would not let them win so easily. But the price of fighting back, the risk of dragging Lucas down with him, loomed like a shadow he could not name. Sleep refused to come. Only the endless loop of questions remained. Am I worth the trouble I bring? Can a love this true survive the world's verdict? By morning, the questions had not faded. They had only grown heavier, pressing on his chest like an unrisen loaf destined to fall. The next days blurred into a haze of rejection letters and whispered condolences from former coworkers who suddenly could not meet his eyes. Benjamin baked at home in their tiny kitchen, selling loaves on a neighborhood app just to keep the lights on. But every batch tasted of bitterness. Lucas tried to reassure him, cooking simple dinners and holding him through the nights. Yet Benjamin felt the distance growing inside himself. How can I ask him to stay when I bring nothing but trouble? The thought haunted him during quiet moments, turning tenderness into guilt. When his mother called from across town, her voice tight with worry, the conversation cut even deeper. Your father heard. Honey, he's disappointed. Says you chose this path. Benjamin gripped the phone until his fingers ached. Disappointed. The word lodged in his throat like dry dough. He wanted to scream that he had not chosen anything, that love had chosen him, but the words died unspoken. Instead, he murmured something about understanding, hung up, and stood alone in the kitchen, tears finally falling into the flour he was measuring. Why does my truth hurt the people I love most? The internal storm intensified, shame warring with defiance, fear battling the faint spark of anger that refused to die. He wiped his eyes, shaped another loaf, and whispered to the empty room, I won't disappear. Not this time. Yet even as he spoke the vow, doubt wrapped tighter around his heart. The road ahead felt endless, and every step seemed paved with the very pain he had tried so hard to spare Lucas and his family. Still, he kept needing, kept moving, because stopping would mean admitting the world was right about him all along. Lucas's arms around him that night felt like the only solid thing left in a world suddenly made of sand. Benjamin lay there, eyes open in the dark, replaying Thompson's sneer until the words carved grooves into his mind. How could 5 years of loyalty vanish because of one unguarded moment? The shame burned hotter now, laced with self-loathing that whispered he had been selfish to let Lucas close. What right did he have to drag this gentle man into the mess of his own truth? Lucas stirred, murmuring sleepily, We'll figure it out, Ben. Together. The words should have comforted. Instead, they twisted the knife. Together. How long until together became because of you? Benjamin's chest tightened with a pain deeper than hunger or fear, guilt. Pure and suffocating. He had always believed love was supposed to lift, not bury. Yet here he was, burying Lucas under the weight of lost wages and town gossip that already followed them like smoke. The job hunt became a daily crucifixion. Each interview started politely enough until a moment the question hovered unspoken. Why did you leave Sweet Haven? Benjamin would offer the scripted answer about seeking new opportunities. But eyes would narrow. Phones would buzz with messages from friends of Thompson, and offers would evaporate. By the third week, the rejections felt personal, each one confirming the voice in his head that said he was tainted, unhireable, broken. In the quiet of their apartment, he would stare at the ceiling and ask himself the same merciless question. If I had stayed hidden, would I still have my dream? The answer always came back the same, yes. But at what cost to my soul? The dilemma tore him in half. Hiding had kept food on the table. Honesty had stripped him bare. Which was the greater sin? Nights with Lucas grew tense despite the tenderness. One evening, Lucas suggested they go public at the town harvest festival. Hold hands openly. Claim their space. Benjamin's stomach dropped. You don't understand what they'll say. The words came sharper than intended. Lucas's eyes flashed with hurt. I understand I'm tired of being your secret, Ben. I love you. But I won't keep shrinking so the town stays comfortable. The argument ended in silence. But inside Benjamin, the conflict roared louder than ever. Was he protecting Lucas or protecting himself from further loss? The question followed him into sleep, waking him in cold sweat. When his father finally called, the conversation was a slow bleed. Son, people are talking. Your mother cries every night. Is this what you want for us? Benjamin gripped the phone, throat closing. He wanted to shout that his love did not erase his worth as a son, as a man, as a baker whose hands had fed half the town. Instead, he heard himself apologize again for existing in a way that inconvenienced them. The call ended with his father's heavy sigh and the quiet click that sounded like a door slamming on childhood. Benjamin sank to the kitchen floor, head in hands, the internal monologue a torrent. Why does my happiness cost everyone else theirs? Am I selfish for refusing to change? The tears came hot and silent. Lucas found him there, knelt beside him, and simply held on. Yet even in that embrace, Benjamin felt the fracture widening. Love was supposed to be shelter. Right now it felt like the storm itself. Days turned into a grinding routine of home baking orders and late-night accounting with Lucas, scraping together enough to cover rent. Every dollar saved carried the taste of sacrifice. Benjamin would watch Lucas hunched over spreadsheets, shoulders tense, and the guilt would surge again. He deserves better than a partner who brings only trouble. The thought repeated like a broken record, louder each time. Yet when Lucas looked up and smiled that crooked, hopeful smile, Benjamin's heart clenched with a love so fierce it hurt. He could not lose this. He would not. So he kept the secret plan forming in the back of his mind, quiet research on the bakery's finances, whispered calls to distant investors, never voicing it aloud because voicing it would make the risk real. The moral weight pressed harder. Was planning to reclaim what was stolen justice, or just another form of hiding? The question haunted every quiet moment, every shared meal. Every night he lay awake wondering if the man he loved could forgive the parts of him still afraid to stand fully in the light. The savings account grew one small deposit at a time, each dollar feeling like a tiny rebellion against the voice that still whispered failure. Benjamin stood at their kitchen counter at 4 a.m., kneading dough for the online orders that kept them afloat. But his mind was miles away in the empty shell of Sweet Haven. Thompson had let the place slide, soggy pastries, late openings, customers drifting away. The thought sent a dark thrill through him. I could fix it. I could make it mine again. But the thrill was immediately drowned by doubt. At what price? Lucas had started asking questions about the late nights, the secret of phone calls. Benjamin lied by omission, telling himself it was protection. Yet the lie tasted like ash. How many more secrets can I bury before our love suffocates? The internal war raged nightly. Love for Lucas clashing against the burning need to prove the town wrong. A betrayal came without warning. An old coworker posted a vague social media warning about certain people bringing drama to local businesses. Comments flooded in, some defending, most condemning. Benjamin read them in the dark, Lucas asleep beside him, and felt the ground crack beneath his feet. They know. They all know. The shame returned tenfold, hotter than the day of the firing. Why can't they just let me bake? Why does my heart offend them so much? He wanted to scream into the pillow, to wake Lucas and beg for reassurance. But instead he lay paralyzed, the monologue looping endlessly. Maybe they're right. Maybe I should have stayed quiet. Maybe love isn't worth this public crucifixion. Yet in the same breath another voice rose, fiercer now, refusing to yield. I built that place. My hands. My recipes. My heart. They don't get to keep it. The conflict tore at him until dawn, leaving him exhausted but strangely resolved. Lucas sensed the shift. One evening he set down his laptop and looked at Benjamin with eyes full of quiet pain. You're pulling away. I can feel it. Is it because of the town? Or because of me? The question landed like a stone in still water. Benjamin opened his mouth to deny, but the truth spilled instead. I'm terrified of losing you because of all this. I'm terrified I'm not enough. The admission hung between them, raw and trembling. Lucas reached across the table, fingers brushing Benjamin's. You are everything. But I can't fight ghosts if you won't let me in. The words cracked something open inside Benjamin. For the first time, the internal storm quieted enough to hear the fear beneath his own anger, fear that his fight for the bakery would cost the only person who had never asked him to be less. That night they talked until the sky lightened. Voices soft, hands clasped. Yet even as Lucas fell asleep in his arms, Benjamin's mind kept turning. Can I reclaim the bakery without losing myself or him in the process? The question followed him into dreams, heavier than ever, laced with a growing certainty that silence was no longer an option. Yet speaking carried dangers he could not yet name. The betrayal from the old coworker spread like spilled yeast, turning neighbors' smiles into averted eyes and quiet whispers at the grocery store. Benjamin felt every glance like a lash. Walking down Main Street became an exercise in endurance. His shoulders tight, jaw clenched, while inside the monologue screamed, "Why do I still care what they think? Why does their disapproval carve pieces out of me?" Lucas walked beside him one afternoon, hand brushing his in silent solidarity. But Benjamin pulled away instinctively, the old habit of self-protection flaring. Lucas stopped, hurt flashing across his face. "I'm not the enemy, Ben." The simple sentence shattered something. Benjamin stood there on the sidewalk, the autumn leaves swirling around their feet, and felt the full weight of his fear crash down. "I'm pushing away the one person who sees me whole because I'm terrified the world will take him too." The realization brought tears he could not hide. Lucas pulled him into a quiet alley and held him while Benjamin whispered apologies that felt too small for the damage. That night the argument they had avoided finally erupted. Lucas paced the living room, voice cracking with frustration and love. "I supported you through the firing, through the silence, through your family's rejection. But I won't support you hiding forever. Not from them. Not from yourself." Benjamin's chest heaved. "You think I want this? Every day I wake up wondering if today is the day I lose everything again because I dared to love you openly." The words hung heavy, charged with a moral storm that had been building for months. Was protecting their peace the same as cowardice? Was demanding openness the same as recklessness? The questions collided inside him until he could barely breathe. Lucas stopped pacing, knelt in front of him, and took his hands. "Then let's stop hiding. Let's fight for the bakery together." Out in the open, the offer was everything and nothing at once. Benjamin wanted it, how he wanted it, but the terror of losing Lucas to the backlash kept him silent. He nodded instead, a half-promise that tasted like compromise, and pulled Lucas close. Yet even in the warmth of that embrace, the internal voice whispered that half-measures would eventually break them both. Savings crept higher. Benjamin took a night job cleaning offices, coming home at 2 a.m., smelling of bleach, hands raw. Lucas picked up extra shifts. Their conversations grew shorter, weighted by exhaustion and unspoken fears. One dawn, Benjamin stood at the window, watching Lucas sleep, the morning light soft on his face, and felt a love so fierce it bordered on despair. "I would burn the world down for you, but I'm afraid the world will burn us first." The thought brought fresh tears. He turned back to his laptop, reviewing the bakery's declining financials one more time. The numbers told a story of slow collapse. Thompson was desperate. A quiet offer through a third party might work. The plan solidified in his mind even as doubt clawed deeper. Is this justice or revenge? Is winning worth becoming the very thing I hate, someone who hides to strike? The moral weight pressed until his shoulders ached. Yet he kept typing, kept planning, because stopping now would mean admitting the town had won. And that was a defeat his soul could not survive. The near miss came without warning. An investor pulled out at the last minute. Citing local controversy, Benjamin stared at the email until the words blurred, the room spinning around him. Everything, every late night, every hidden conversation, every sacrifice hung by a thread. The internal scream was deafening. Why does the universe keep punishing me for loving the wrong way? He wanted to throw the laptop, to rage, to beg someone, anyone, for mercy. Instead, he sat frozen, the weight of failure crushing his chest until breathing hurt. Lucas found him like that, took one look at his face, and knew They sat on the floor together, Lucas's arms around him, and for the first time, Benjamin let the full storm break aloud. I'm so tired of fighting for a place in a world that doesn't want me. I'm tired of wondering if my love is the reason we keep losing. The confession poured out raw and ugly, years of swallowed shame finally surfacing. Lucas listened, tears in his own eyes, then spoke softly. Your love is the only thing that's kept me going. But if we keep hiding the fight, we'll lose each other anyway. The words landed like truth and threat at once. Benjamin felt the fracture inside him widen into a chasm. Was the bakery worth risking the only real home he had ever known? That weekend his mother showed up unannounced, eyes red from crying. Your father won't speak your name. The church group is praying for you, praying you'll change. The sentence sliced deeper than any firing. Benjamin stood in the doorway, the woman who had taught him to roll pie crust now looking at him like a stranger. Inside, the monologue howled. How can the person who rocked me to sleep now see me as broken? Am I supposed to choose between my family and my truth? The dilemma felt impossible, tearing at the very core of who he believed himself to be. He invited her in, made tea with shaking hands, and listened while she pleaded. When she left, the silence in the apartment was heavier than stone. Lucas waited until the door closed before wrapping Benjamin in his arms. You don't have to choose. We can build our own family. The kindness should have healed. Instead, it highlighted every crack. Benjamin clung to him, whispering, I don't know how much more I can lose before there's nothing left of me. The confession was the most honest thing he had said in months, and it left him trembling. The moral storm reached its peak that night. Lying beside Lucas, Benjamin stared at the ceiling and asked himself the question that had haunted him since the firing. If I buy the bakery in secret, am I winning or simply proving the world right that people like me must hide to survive? The answer refused to come. Instead, he felt the weight of every choice pressing down, every sacrifice, every tear. Yet beneath the despair, a new resolve flickered, brighter, angrier, more determined. He would finish the plan. He would reclaim what was his. But the cost to his soul, to his relationship, to his peace, loomed larger than ever. And for the first time, he wondered if victory would taste like victory at all. The funding finally cleared through a discreet LLC. Benjamin signed the papers in a nondescript office 2 towns over, heart hammering so hard he could barely hold a pen. This is it. The moment he had fought for, bled for, lied for. Yet as the ink dried, triumph felt hollow, laced with the sharp edge of guilt. Lucas waited in the car, unaware the final wire transfer had just happened. Benjamin slid into the passenger seat, hands still shaking, and for the first time considered telling him everything. The words rose and died on his tongue. Not yet. Not until it's done. The internal voice mocked him. Still hiding. Still protecting yourself at his expense. The self-reproach was vicious now, sharper than ever, because the end was in sight and the lies had grown too heavy to carry alone. Negotiations with Thompson were brutal and anonymous. The old man raged over the phone at the faceless buyer who knew every weakness in the books. Benjamin listened through the lawyer, each insult landing like a fresh wound. Tell that coward I hope he chokes on the profits. The words burned because Benjamin knew they were aimed at him, even if Thompson didn't know it yet. In the quiet afterward, he sat alone in their apartment, Lucas at work, and let the tears come. Why does winning have to feel like this? Like I'm becoming the villain in someone else's story. The moral dilemma had evolved into something darker, revenge dressed as justice, secrecy dressed as strategy. He questioned every choice that had led him here. Was the right path the one that hurt the least people, or the one that finally let him stand tall? The answer still eluded him, leaving only exhaustion and a fierce, protective love for the man who had stayed through it all. When the papers were finally signed, Benjamin drove past the bakery at dusk. The for sale sign was gone. His sign. The building looked the same, Yet everything had changed. He parked across the street and stared, the internal monologue rising to a crescendo. This is mine again. But at what cost to the person I love most? He thought of Lucas's patient smiles, the way he had held him through every breakdown, and felt the weight of every unspoken truth pressed down until breathing hurt. Tomorrow he would reveal himself. Tomorrow the town would know. Tomorrow Lucas would learn how deep the secrecy had run. The fear of that revelation was almost enough to make him walk away. Almost. But the spark of defiance that had kept him going since the firing refused to die. He drove home, parked, and sat in the dark car for long minutes, gathering the courage he would need for what came next. The storm inside him had not quieted. It had only grown more complex, triumph tangled with terror, justice tangled with guilt. Yet beneath it all beat the steady rhythm of love for Lucas, the one constant that made every risk feel almost worth it. The morning of the reveal dawned bright and merciless. Benjamin stood outside Sweet Haven at 5 a.m., key in hand, the new sign already installed under cover of night. His heart thundered. This is the moment. He unlocked the door, stepped inside, and flipped the lights. The familiar scent of yeast and sugar rushed over him like a wave. But instead of comfort, it brought a rush of conflicting emotions so strong he had to grip the counter. I'm home. I'm home and I'm terrified. Lucas arrived an hour later, summoned by a cryptic text. When he stepped inside and saw Benjamin behind the counter, wearing the old apron now embroidered with his own name as owner, the shock on his face was immediate. Ben, what did you do? The question held hurt. Oh, betrayal all at once. Benjamin's voice cracked as he tried to explain the months of secrecy, the hidden savings, the anonymous purchase. Each word felt like peeling back skin. Lucas listened, eyes glistening, then turned away for a long moment. When he spoke, the pain was raw. You carried this alone. You didn't trust me with a fight that was ours. The accusation landed like a physical blow. Benjamin felt the ground shift beneath him. I thought I was protecting you, but maybe I was only protecting myself from your disappointment. The internal realization cut deeper than any town gossip ever had. Thompson stormed in at opening, face purple with rage. You? After everything. The confrontation exploded in the middle of the shop, customers pausing outside the windows. Benjamin stood tall, voice steady despite the storm inside. I built this place. You threw me away for loving the wrong person. Now I'm taking it back for every kid who thinks they have to hide who they are. The words poured out, years of swallowed silence finally free. Thompson sputtered, threatened lawsuits, but left defeated. Yet victory tasted metallic. Lucas stood beside him through it all, Penn finally finding his in public for the first time. But the tension between them remained electric. That night, after the doors closed, Lucas turned to him in the quiet kitchen. I'm proud of you, but I'm also angry. You made me a spectator in our own story. Benjamin pulled him close, foreheads touching, and whispered the truth that had been burning him alive. I was scared that if you knew the risk, you'd leave, and losing you would break me worse than losing the bakery ever could. The confession hung between them, raw and necessary. Lucas's arms tightened. We fight together now. No more secrets. The promise settled something deep inside Benjamin. Yet the emotional weight of the day left him trembling. The town would talk. His family would hear. The backlash would come. But for the first time, he felt ready, not whole, but ready to face it with a man he loved beside him. Weeks after the takeover, the bakery hummed with new life, rainbow stickers on the window, a pride flag discreetly tucked beside the register. Customers returning with cautious curiosity. Benjamin watched a young teenager order a cupcake with trembling hands, eyes flicking to the flag, and felt something inside him ease for the first time in months. Maybe this is what it was all for. Yet even in the quiet triumph, the internal questions refused to fade. Had the secrecy been worth the strain on Lucas? Had reclaiming the bakery healed him or simply taught him new ways to hide? Lucas moved beside him with easy grace now, their hands brushing openly while they worked side by side. But Benjamin still caught the occasional shadow in his partner's eyes, the memory of months spent in the dark. The guilt lingered, softer but persistent, whispering that victory always carries invisible scars. His mother came again, this time with a tentative smile and a pie she had baked herself. Your father, he's watching from afar. He doesn't understand, but he sees the lines at the door. The words were not forgiveness, but they were not rejection either. Benjamin hugged her tightly, the embrace carrying years of unspoken pain. Inside, the monologue had quieted to a murmur. Maybe change doesn't happen in grand declarations. Maybe it happens in small returns, in flour-dusted hands reaching across old divides. Lucas stood in the doorway, watching with quiet pride, and when their eyes met, Benjamin felt the last tight knot inside his chest begin to loosen. They had survived. They had rebuilt. Yet the deepest truth remained. The fight had changed them both, forging something stronger but forever marked by what it had cost. That evening, after closing, Benjamin locked the door and turned to Lucas under the warm bakery lights. I almost lost you trying to win this place back. I'm sorry for every secret. Lucas pulled him close, voice soft but sure. We won it together in the end. That's what matters. They stood there, foreheads touching, the scent of fresh bread wrapping around them like a promise. Benjamin closed his eyes and let the final wave of emotion wash over him. Grief for what was lost, gratitude for what remained, love fierce enough to survive every storm. The town still whispered. His family still struggled. But inside these walls, he had carved a space where truth could breathe. The internal storm had not vanished. It had simply learned to coexist with hope. Was Benjamin right to hide his plan and buy the bakery in secret? Or was that silence itself a betrayal of the very authenticity he fought to reclaim? True or false?